Get ready, Padres fans. It's time for the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Tatis hit third, 2 outs. Fernando takes off. He's going to steal home without a play.
Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, and our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today the Padres take on the Arizona Diamondbacks in the third game of a 4-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the D-backs, right-hander Ryan Nelson, and for the Padres, right-hander Matt Waldron. Hi again everyone, Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park. First pitch coming up at 5:40 as the Padres try to make it 2 straight wins against the D-backs. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, you'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. I have a great conversation with Diamondbacks broadcaster and former Major League knuckleballer Tom Candiotti. Plus, in just a little bit, we'll check in with Tony Gwynn Jr. as we get ready for this one. But first, let's set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside. Padres enter with a record of 33-34. Padres snapped a 5-game losing skid last night. Padres, despite losing 5 of their last 6 games, have out-hit their opponent in 6 consecutive games. Meanwhile, the D-backs are 30-34. They've won 5 of 7. Before we turn our full attention to tonight's game, let's recap what was a big night for the Padres offense.
How did the Padres fare in their last game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind. Presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino. Fun above all else.
Fernando Tatis Jr. gave the Padres an early spark in the first inning.
Here's the hottest hitter in baseball, Fernando Tatis Jr. First pitch swinging in the air, deep to center field. Carroll racing back, still back, at the wall, looking up, gonna go! Number 11 for Fernando. He extends his hitting streak to 13 games on the first pitch of the night, and he does so emphatically with a home run to straightaway center field. 1-0 Padres in the bottom of the first.
Fernando's buddy, Jurickson Profar, was next.
3-2, Profar in the air, deep to right, towards the Petco porch, gonna go! Big bat flip as he gets to first base. And the Padres hit back-to-back home runs for the 3rd time this year, the 2nd time against Arizona, and it's 2-0 in the bottom of the first.
Padres led 3-0 going to the bottom of the 6th inning. There was a runner on base for Ha-Sung Kim.
0-2 to Kim, not running. And a pitch swung on, hit in the air to deep center. Carroll's got to race straight back, still going back. It's over his head, it's going to go! A 2-run homer for Ha-Sung Kim. 8th of the year, and just like that, it's a 5-0 game here in the bottom of the 6th.
A doink special.
Michael King went 5 scoreless innings in his start. The D-backs got 3 runs in the top of the 7th inning, though, to make it 5-3. Padres then answered in the bottom half of the 8th inning in a big way. Luis Campusano hit an RBI single to make it 6-3. Later in the inning, Jurickson Profar dug in with the bases loaded.
Now the 1-1 pitch swung on, ripped in the air down the right field line. That's a fair ball, going to go to the corner. Kim has scored. Campusano's right behind him. Tatis trying to score from first, and he will without a throw. A bases clearing double for Profar, and the Padre lead is 9-3.
Donovan Solano made it 10-3 with an RBI single, a 5-run 8th inning for the Padres. They went on to win by that final score. Padres 10, D-backs 3, snapping a 5-game losing skid, and now the Padres go for a 2nd consecutive win here tonight in downtown San Diego. As always, if you want to get involved on our pregame coverage, you can do that in a number of different ways. You can tweet at me at SammyLev, SammyLev. Instagram DMs open as well. Sammy Lev there too. If you want to comment on our various video streams, you can also do that. Let me know, what is your key to today's game? May just read your key to the game coming up a little bit later on in the show. Let's check in with Tony Gwynn Jr.
Let's go inside the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup from Tony Gwynn Jr. in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
We go down the way here at Petco Park. We're joined by Tony Gwynn Jr. as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 5:40. And Tony, let's quickly touch on last night. In one way, last night's game was like all the other games during the 5-game losing skid, the Padres out-hitting their opponent. But in another way, it was unlike those games because the Padres really did generate a lot of runs last night. 10 runs total on 14 hits. To you, was there something different about the offense last night, or was it just a matter of time until the hits started resulting in more runs?
Well, I think the home run obviously was different.
Yeah.
The Padres had a few of those last night, but ultimately, I mean, it was the same attack, except they got the timely hits that they didn't get in the previous 5 games. I mean, maybe 2 of the 5 games they didn't create a whole bunch of opportunity, but, you know, the other games they created enough to where they should have been able to put up some runs, but if you're not getting hits with runners in scoring position, it's going to be tough to do that. Last night wasn't the case. They were able to kind of blow that game open, especially late.
Tony, Fernando Tatis Jr. continues to be terrific in the midst of a 13-game hitting streak, batting .434 in that span, had the big home run to really spark the offense last night. Your thoughts on Fernando, what he's done during this hitting streak, and the power last night, because we know when Fernando's got it cooking, he can hit the ball a long way. That was good to see last night.
It was good to see. I just think it's pretty simple for Fernando right now, and you and I have talked about it. He's not chasing. So that forces the pitcher into that rectangle box we see on our TV screen. But I think more importantly, he's not trying to generate the power. He is almost letting the pitcher supply it. And we've seen that on a couple different occasions with 2 strikes, almost just take a nice, easy swing, and it's a base hit up the middle or a double in the gap. And I think that's the biggest difference. He's not chasing, and when the pitch is in the zone, he's not trying to do too much with it. And the results have been that he's doing a lot with it offensively.
Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres here tonight. And really, you look at Waldron's season so far, there was everything before the start against the Diamondbacks in Arizona where he really struggled on that day. But since then, Tony, he's been really, really effective. A sub-2 ERA in his last 5 starts. In this most recent stretch, what has been the key for Matt Waldron?
Well, this is a difficult question. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
He's had about 2 starts in this run where he hasn't necessarily been at his best. And I think those have been his most impressive, especially the last one. He wasn't getting ahead like he had been, and so it really limited the amount of knuckleballs he could throw. Yet he still was able to figure out a way to get out. And when I watch him pitch, the thing that keeps standing out to me, aside from the knuckleball that's been really good, when he needs to get a strike, he can throw that little sweeper for a strike. He throws the fastball for a strike. And so that kind of was able to kind of mask the issues that he was having getting ahead because he was able to get back in those at-bats with his other stuff. And so I was impressed, most impressed his last start because he didn't have the ability. He wasn't getting ahead like he had been the previous starts, yet he still went out and threw a pretty good game for the Pods. And I think it's a part of his growth as a knuckleballer, really, in some ways accepting the fact that he needs to throw it more. And, when he doesn't, much like we saw last night, when guys don't have their best stuff, yet they're able to still keep their teams in ball games and give you a good outing, I think that's a sign of growth.
And growth is such a key word to use with Matt Waldron. I caught up with Tom Candiotti, one of the Diamondbacks broadcasters, a longtime successful knuckleballer in the major leagues back in the day. We'll play the conversation a little bit later. It was so good. I really encourage people to stick around because Tom's face, it just lights up when he's talking about Matt Waldron and the knuckleball. So I wanted to ask you, Tony, what was your experience with the knuckleball during your playing days?
I had 2 experiences. I had, and it was the same guy. It was R.A. Dickey, who you guys know won a Cy Young with the knuckleball. I saw him as a slow knuckleballer, and then I saw him as a reinvented hard knuckleballer. And let's just say the first time through it was a lot more fun hitting against him. The hard knuckleball, which was something that a lot of us hadn't seen when he first started throwing it, it's tough. It gets on you quick. It still has a lot of the same movement, maybe not as much, but you still can't predict which way it's going. And so at speeds of 81, 82, 83, it presents some problems sometimes. And so, it's one of those days. In the past, when it was a slow knuckleball, it was like a free day almost. Like, go up there, have some fun. If it's high, let it fly. If it's low, let it go. But when it started becoming harder, you had to kind of like lock in and try to figure out what the game plan was going to be.
Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres here today. Should be a lot of fun watching him. It's been a lot of fun as of late. Has really done a nice job for this starting rotation. Tony, as always, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Jesse coming up at 5:30. Thanks so much.
All right, Sam, take care.
All right, that is Tony Gwynn Jr. here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 5:40. Game 3 of this 4-game series. Padres and the D-backs splitting the first 2 games of this series. We'll see who comes out on top. Again, our pitching matchup here today, Matt Waldron for the Padres and Ryan Nelson for Arizona. When we come back on the Padres Radio Network, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Plus, a little bit later, we have our keys to the game, and I go one-on-one with D-backs broadcaster and former knuckleballer Tom Candiotti. Much more to get to on our pregame coverage after this on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Your water perfected, EcoWater SoCal. Your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we get ready for Game 3 of this 4-game series between the Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Padres and the D-backs splitting the first 2 games of this 4-game set. Coming up in just a little while, we'll have Who's Hot, Who's Not. Plus, a little bit later, I go one-on-one with former Major League knuckleballer Tom Candiotti, now a member of the Diamondbacks broadcast crew. Tom had a lot to say about Matt Waldron. Really, really good conversation. All that is coming up in the next 15, 20 minutes or so. Before we hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt, and we will have a full look at the injury updates today for both the Padres and the Diamondbacks a little bit later, I'll tell you one important piece of news. Manny Machado not in the lineup once again here today. 3rd straight game that Manny is not in the starting lineup. We'll see what his status is after today. We'll see if he's going to be able to avoid an IL stint. Of course, he came out of Wednesday's game with the strain of his right hip flexor. Did pinch hit on Thursday night. Didn't play last night, but Manny not in the lineup for the Padres here today. Let's hear what Padres manager Mike Shildt had to say before this one in downtown San Diego.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Fernando's been on a tear. Anything that you've seen differently over the last 13 games, or just things finally coming together for him? What have you seen out of him?
Yeah, I think he's done a nice job being able to get back in the zone. He's getting pitches he can handle. Clearly not missing them. He looks like he's just got a really nice, simple approach to how he's trying to swing, and his swing actually looks pretty simple as well. So he's in a good spot.
As far as the 8th inning goes in your bullpen, is it starting to settle down? We've seen a lot of Jeremiah Estrada in that situation. Is it still a little bit of a moving parts, or how do you see it at this point?
Yeah, I think we've been in a couple different places with our bullpen, and feel pretty good about it. The bullpen kind of tells us how to use them to some degree too, and Jeremiah's done a good job of establishing himself as a guy that we can trust, later in the game. Did a nice job last night. That was a big opportunity to come in and finish the 7th, and him being able to grab a 1-2-3 efficient 6-pitch 8th was huge. It's really just about, putting him in the best positions it can, but ultimately it's about those guys getting their outs, and he was able to do that last night, and then we were able to open up, and it was good for Yuki to come in and get some work and get maybe some confidence back as well. So, but your bullpen's only as good as the efficiency of what they do, and we can only use them as much as they're available.
This 5-game stretch for Matt Waldron has been really, really good. What's the most significant thing that's stood out to you in this stretch as far as what he continues to improve on, how he continues to grow as a pitcher?
Yeah, the growth part's important for all of us, right? And Matty's done a nice job of, I say this a fair amount, internally and externally. It's about your experiences every time you get a chance to perform, and then growing from other people's experiences. And I really applaud Matt if he's really taken advantage and you see a better version of him, just like we have with Vasquez, quite candidly. And our staff does a good job, Ruben, Fritzy, and the group. But credit to the player, the catchers have been involved. But what are you doing? How are we using your arsenal? What can we do more of, less of? What's working for you? It's even in Matt's case, a routine of before the game, what his bullpen looks like, how much he needs to throw, when he needs to get ready. So Matt's done a really nice job, but ultimately it gets to be about controlling counts and being able to get his knuckleball in the zone and being able to complement it with his secondary pitches, which are good, his sweeper and his heater.
You said yesterday that the homers are still very much there. You've been obviously very high in the league in hitting, a lot of maybe it's without some of the slug. You don't feel like the high average and whatnot you're not sacrificing any power there. These guys still have it, and it's still.
I think there's always a little bit of give and take in that, right? Trying to find the sweet spot and I think we found it for the first, 50 games or so. Tasted pretty good, looked pretty good, numbers supported it. Got into a stretch where, whether it was intentional or whether it's just the fact of the game, the way the game's played out, a little bit more average than slug. I personally believe in the balance of that. You know, I do think if you're going to be looking to put good at-bats together and look and use a line drive approach, you're likely going to have a little more average. You have a chance to potentially, depending on, I mean, we're not a walk-first, philosophy. And then damage will come as a residual part of that. I've also been on the other side where it's like, and the industry has, where slug. And that's a philosophy people hold on to, and I can't say it doesn't work. I think it ultimately depends on your personnel. And I think we're built for more of the hybrid, which I love. And I think outside of, again, a little stretch here recently where we haven't had as much slug, we've had a nice blend of average and slug, and I think that's the real sweet spot. And I also believe that's a sweet spot for playoff baseball.
Padres manager Mike Shildt before today's game. We'll hear more from Mike during our injury report coming up a little bit later on. Let's pause for station ID on the Padres radio network. Sam Levitt with you here on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres radio network as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 5:40. And as always, a lot of people come and say hello to me inside the Western Metal Building. I have on the air with me right now an 11-year-old named Rhett who has come up a couple of times over the years and always comes and says hello. Rhett, welcome to live radio. Big Padres fan. Who's your favorite player and why? Tell me.
My favorite player is Fernando Tatis Jr. because he's dynamic, and I went to his camp when I was 6 years old.
All right, very nice. Give me a prediction for tonight's game. Who's winning and what's the final score here tonight?
I think that the Padres are going to win 5-2.
Okay,
yeah.
Padres win 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody hit a home run?
I think that Jake Cronenworth's going to hit a home run.
Okay, Rhett, I like the way you think. Have a great time at the game tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in and saying hello once again. Great to see you. Have a good time tonight. And welcome to Major League Radio. You're on the air right now, all across the world, all across San Diego. How cool is that?
This is really cool.
All right, that is 11-year-old Rhett. Give it up for Rhett. Awesome, awesome stuff. And a great prediction. Jake Cronenworth hitting a home run tonight. You heard it here first from Rhett on the Padres radio network. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not as we get ready for this one.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres radio network.
We tell you who's hot, who's not as we get ready for Game 3 of this 4-game series. Let's begin with the hot category, and really today we'll focus on that hot category. Fernando Tatis Jr. in the midst of a 13-game hitting streak, longest active hitting streak in the major leagues. Fernando batting .434 in that span with an 1134 OPS, 3 home runs, and 7 RBIs during the streak. Jurickson Profar hitting .350 in the last 11 games with 4 extra base hits and 10 RBIs. His .325 batting average ranks second in the major leagues, only behind Luis Arraez. And Ketel Marte for the Diamondbacks will also put him in the hot category, 11 for his last 22, 3 home runs and 6 RBIs in that span. We take a look at the not category. One guy in there, you'll look at the very bottom of the Arizona lineup tonight. Tucker Barnhart doing the catching for Arizona, batting just .148 on the season. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for a little baseball on this Saturday evening in downtown San Diego. When we come back, we have our keys to the game and much, much more, including a one-on-one conversation with former Major League knuckleballer Tom Candiotti, now a member of the Diamondbacks broadcast team, calling the game on D-Backs TV. I really encourage you to stay tuned through the break to hear this conversation with Tom Candiotti. He's somebody that has worked with Matt Waldron. They have a relationship, and really, Tom's face just lit up when talking about Matt Waldron and the knuckleball. That is such a tight-knit community of knuckleballers across the baseball world. It is really, really good. So we're going to talk plenty of knuckleball when we come back, and a little bit later, we take a deep dive into this pitching matchup between Waldron and right-hander Ryan Nelson on the mound for Arizona. More pregame coverage after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 5:40. Right-hander Matt Waldron on the mound for San Diego. Right-hander Ryan Nelson on the mound for Arizona. Let's update you on the status of Manny Machado with our injury report.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Our injury report here today focuses on Manny Machado. Manny came out of Wednesday's game with the right hip flexor strain, did pinch hit late in the game on Thursday, didn't play last night, not in the lineup here tonight. Here was Mike Shildt on Manny's status earlier today.
Manny's, haven't seen him yet today. He's here. I haven't had a chance to interact with him. I know after the game yesterday, there was a lot of favorable reviews from him and medical about how he feels, how he's recovering. Still dealing with it, but he's in a good trajectory to move forward, and we'll evaluate it literally day to day. He's in a better spot.
Is it a little bit of a balancing act in terms of he's feeling better, than how much do you push it in terms of the running, and just sort of have to play it by ear?
Complete balancing act, man. It's God bless the medical people, because you got a soft tissue thing, and it's like, all right, we need to figure out if he can go out in a major league game and compete and do all the things that are required and all the movements, but you don't want to aggravate it by testing it to see if he can do it. So, it's just time's required, but they're really good at what they do. And, of course, you always partner and listen to the player, and Manny's got experience to help us out.
You have not ruled out an IL for Manny. Is there an improvement on that?
Haven't ruled it out, but I don't feel like we're trending that way. But, again, if he's not participating, he's still in play. But so I haven't ruled it out, but we feel some confidence. Today will be a pretty big day. Today and tomorrow, whether he's going to be able to go or not.
What do you expect him to do today as far as getting ready?
I haven't seen a specific plan. I mean, he's going to clearly get his treatment, and then he'll do some testing based on his strength, and then he'll get some swings, and he'll move around a little bit. How much, depending on how he feels, obviously.
Is this the thing that, when he comes back, it'd probably be as DH, given that?
I would expect your first time out him to DH, and then he'll kind of let us know how he looks and feels, and hopefully he can graduate back to playing third sooner than later, but we're not going to force it.
That was Mike Shildt on Manny Machado earlier today. So like Mike said, sounds like today's a big day for Manny as they decide what exactly to do, whether he's going to avoid an IL stint or not. So we'll see what the update is later on today or tomorrow with Manny Machado, what the Padres ultimately decide to do, and whether Manny, who knows, maybe he comes off the bench tonight, maybe he plays tomorrow. We'll see what the updates are in the days to come. Let's take a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We take a look at scores today from around the major leagues. Rockies beat the Cardinals 6-5. Royals beat the Mariners 8-4 in Kansas City. Brewers over the Tigers 5-4 in Detroit. Reds 4, Cubs 3 in Cincinnati. White Sox beat the Red Sox 6-1 in Chicago. Orioles over the Rays 5-0 in Tampa Bay. In London, the Phillies beat the Mets 7-2. Games going on right now. Guardians ahead of the Marlins 1-0 in the second. Dodgers and Yankees tied at 1 in the second. And games yet to begin. Just one other aside from this one. It is the Astros and the Angels at 7:07 coming up a little bit later on. A bunch of other finals to tell you about. Nationals beat the Braves 7-3. Pirates beat the Twins 4-0. Giants over the Rangers 3-1. And finally, the Blue Jays beat the A's 7-0 in Oakland. And that's a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. Well, earlier today, I had a really great conversation with former Major League pitcher Tom Candiotti, who's now a member of the Diamondbacks broadcast crew. Tom started more than 400 games in his Major League career, more than 150 wins, and he was a knuckleballer, relied on the knuckleball. Really great conversation here, and an appropriate time to have it with Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres here today. Enjoy this conversation from earlier with Tom Candiotti. Sam Levitt here on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show as we get ready for today's game between the Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And with the knuckleballer Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres today, I'm joined by a great knuckleballer in his own right. That's Diamondbacks broadcaster Tom Candiotti, a long, successful career in the major leagues. Tom, let's start with this. I know you've had a chance to meet Matt Waldron in the past, talk to him about using the knuckleball. What is your relationship like with Waldron, and how did that come about?
Well, Matt and I met back in, I want to say it was 2022, and might have been 2021, but I think it was 2022. I had a call from A.J. Preller, and A.J. asked me if I'd be willing to work with a young kid that is trying to develop a knuckleball. And he was going to the Arizona Fall League at that time, and I lived right in Scottsdale. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to. And so I went down and met Matt, talked to him on the phone, and watched every one of his workouts that year. And you know, every bullpen that he had, I was there. I watched his games, and then we always met afterwards and just tried to evaluate things and kept giving him little tips. He had a zillion questions, you know, trying to learn it because it's really hard to find anyone that knows much about that or has experience with the knuckleball, and so you know we became very friendly because of that, and you know, and I could not be more happy to see him and where he's come, and being able to broadcast the game now with him on the mound.
When you first met Matt, he was still very early in the process of learning that knuckleball. So what were your initial impressions of what he was doing, what he was working on?
He reminded me exactly of myself. You know, he had good other stuff, and he also had a knuckleball. And so what he wanted to do was, you know, try to throw his knuckleball, but he still wanted to rely on his other stuff. It's kind of a big step for a pitcher to take to, you know, try to make that, you know, make that jump. And so I said, you know, just think of this. Think of throwing your knuckleball even or ahead in the count. And that way, you know, you're 0-1, throw it again. If you're 1-0, throw one of your other pitches, make sure it's a strike. You get the 1-1, throw your knuckleball. And so that just gives you a game plan. And so I think he started doing that. And now, you know, he's kind of starting to graduate a little bit from just being a pitcher that throws a knuckleball and turning himself into a knuckleball pitcher.
It's been interesting with Waldron just in the last couple of starts, because 2 starts ago he used it 55% of the time. The last start down in the 30s as far as percentage, but he's been almost equally as effective. I mean, the last 5 starts he's been really, really good. From your perspective, what stood out to you about the way he's using it this season as he continues to learn about it?
Well, I watch his games every chance I get. You know, even from afar, I'll watch him. And some of the games where he doesn't, maybe his percentage isn't that high, it's because he's not landing it for strikes, and he's got to come in with his other stuff a little bit more. When he is landing it for strikes, the usage is going to go up, and it's going to go up to 50%, or sometimes, you know, even higher if he can. So it all depends on, you know, how it's feeling, you know, how he starts the game is always a big thing for a knuckleball pitcher. You know, are you wild early in the game, or if you're landing it, then, you know, you're going to get the feel for it, and usually you're going to cruise.
We're joined by Diamondbacks broadcaster Tom Candiotti. Tom, also a longtime knuckleballer in the major leagues, a terrific major league career. The fascinating part about the knuckleball, beyond what it does in the air and during a baseball game, there are so few guys that have thrown it over the years. It seems like it really is a fraternity of guys who communicate with one another, who help one another. I mean, you told the story, A.J. Preller asking you to connect with Matt, and you're on the Diamondbacks broadcast, but you were perfectly happy to do it. Tell me a little bit about that fraternity, the community of knuckleballers.
Well, you know, I'll go back to, you know, the evolution of my career and of being a knuckleball pitcher. And, you know, I was a regular pitcher that got to the major leagues just with regular stuff. And then I started trying to throw a knuckleball, and I go, you know, I really got something here. And so I had to meet with someone that knew a knuckleball. And so I met with Joe Niekro, was the first guy, and then I became teammates with Phil Niekro. And so I was able to learn and play catch and watch Phil pitch and develop that way. And then along the way, met Charlie Huff, who was pitching for the Rangers at the time. So between Joe Niekro and Phil Niekro and Charlie Huff, I was like their godchild. You know, they were all up there in age, and they all wanted to see me really carry the torch. And that's how I feel about Matt. You know, he's a young kid. He's trying to find his way. I have so many similarities with my story as what he's going through right now. And so, of course, a guy like myself wants to see him succeed because I really want him to really continue with the legacy of that pitch.
Yeah, it's been really awesome to watch. And when that pitch is working, it is so much fun to watch. To you, with Waldron in particular, what's the key for him throwing the absolute best knuckleball he can?
Well, the biggest thing is taking the spin off the ball. And so sometimes it's not an easy thing, especially early in games, because you come out with a lot of adrenaline. And when you have a lot of adrenaline, it's great for a guy that throws hard, a max effort guy, but throwing a knuckleball is almost like an over-exaggerated game of catch. You know, it's like catch plus. And so you have to get that adrenaline out of your system. And that's all right for him because he can land a fastball, land a breaking ball, whatever. But, you know, then he can keep working his knuckleball in until he finds the feel of it, and then he can go. So the big thing for him is, and he's still learning this, is to be able to take the spin off the ball more consistently. And when that happens, the ball's going to move more, and hopefully you'll be throwing that in the strike zone. And then, you know, instead of throwing 40%, 50%, next thing you know, you're going to be throwing about 60, 65%.
Let me ask you one more thing, just because you mentioned it. Do you feel like for Matt Waldron, that's the ultimate goal, to throw it as much as he possibly can when you look at the wide lens of his career in the coming years?
Well, obviously the goal is to win, right? So, you know, you want to see him succeed. But what's going to keep him in the major leagues and what's going to keep and give him a long career is going to be the knuckleball. That's going to be his bread and butter. So that's the pitch he has to keep working on and keep developing. And he's going to go about it on his own way, on his own time. And he's got a fantastic pitching coach in Ruben. I talked to Ruben yesterday for a long time about it. We were comparing notes on it. And so he's got a guy that really understands him. So he's in a perfect scenario between, you know, Ruben, the general manager, AJ Preller, and also with Matt. And so the stars couldn't align any better for him.
Tom, really appreciate the time. This was fascinating stuff. So interesting to hear about the knuckleball, your journey, and as the Padres have a knuckleballer of their own in Matt Waldron. Good luck on the Diamondbacks broadcast tonight. Thanks for joining the Padres radio broadcast here today. Enjoy the game here tonight.
I really appreciate the time. Thanks.
That was a great conversation with Diamondbacks broadcaster and former MLB knuckleballer Tom Candiotti. Let's give you our keys to the game.
How will the Padres unlock a victory in today's game? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Honor Buick GMC Hummer in National City.
Couple of quick keys to the game. Key number one, keep the power coming. Last night we saw the power of hitting home runs. The Padres hit 3 home runs last night. First time they hit 3 home runs in a game since May 19th. In the 18 games between May 19th and last night, the Padres only had a grand total of 9 home runs. Padres don't have to be this big power team, but we saw last night it helps make scoring runs a whole lot quicker. Key number 2, win with Waldron. We just heard a lot about Matt Waldron. He's been great over the past month. A 1.84 ERA in his past 5 starts. That ranks 10th best in the majors in that span. Waldron hopefully can bounce back after what was a tough outing against Arizona towards the beginning of May. We'll have more on that in our next segment. When we come back, we'll tell you what to watch for in today's game. A deeper dive into this pitching matchup. First pitch coming up at 5:40 on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park. First pitch coming up at 5:40. Let's tell you what to watch for in tonight's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in tonight's game. Can Fernando Tatis Jr. match his career best hitting streak? Fernando enters tonight in the midst of a 13-game hit streak, batting .434 in that span. His career-long hitting streak is 14 games. He did that as a rookie in the summer of 2019. So that's what I'm looking for in tonight's game. Can Fernando make it a 14-game hitting streak and match his career high? Now let's dive into our pitching matchup between Matt Waldron and Ryan Nelson on this Saturday night.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Right-hander Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres. He's 3-5, a 3.98 ERA in 12 starts this season, 63-plus innings. He struck out 64 and walked 19. He's been great lately, a 1.84 ERA in his past 5 starts, 35 strikeouts in his last 29-plus innings. Earlier this week in Anaheim, he went 6 innings and a third, 1 earned run given up on 2 hits. Here's where the challenge is for Waldron tonight. He faced Arizona to begin May. It did not go well. 3 innings, 7 earned runs, 8 hits, and 3 walks. Interesting to see how Waldron uses that knuckleball here tonight. His last start, it was 35%, but remember, it was up to 55% in the start before that when he threw 7 scoreless innings against the Marlins. So we'll see what Waldron does with that knuckler here tonight. Meanwhile, right-hander Ryan Nelson on the mound for Arizona, 3-4, a 5.44 ERA in 10 outings this year, 48 innings, 64 hits given up. Nelson had a tough month of May, nearly a 7 ERA, but he did bounce back nicely to begin the month of June against the Giants. 7 2/3 innings his last time out, with just 2 earned runs given up on 6 hits. Faced the Padres back in early May. Nelson allowed 4 runs in 5 innings. Has a 6.23 career ERA in 6 starts against the Padres. Now 2 career starts at Petco Park. Combined 12 innings and just 3 earned runs given up in those 2 starts here in San Diego. Remember, he pitched 7 scoreless innings in his major league debut here in September of 2022. And that's a look at our pitching matchup here today. Ryan Nelson on the mound for Arizona and Matt Waldron on the mound for San Diego. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Padres and Diamondbacks splitting the first 2 games of this series. Diamondbacks winning on Thursday, Padres winning last night. Who's going to take the game on this Saturday? We're going to find out. Should be a lot of fun here on the Padres Radio Network. When we come back, Jesse Ackler, Tony Gwynn Jr. have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game show. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan, and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.